advised.
The morning is cool and cloudy and the birds are singing away, but unfortunately the hyena den is completely empty. Nobody's home here this morning. This is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live. A very good morning to all of you and welcome on our sunrise safari, where once again it is a cool and cloudy start. My name is Jamie and this morning Senzo is on camera with me and James is out on drive with Craig, Brent is out on a walk with Martin, and of course we have all sorts of exciting things planned for you on this live safari. We're coming to you live from a place called Djuma Private Game Reserve, and without any further ado, let's go and explore while I explain a little bit more about where we are and what we do. We are on Djuma Private Game Reserve, which is in the Sabi Sand, which falls under the greater, squeaky brakes, the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. And because this is completely 100% live, what that means for you is that you can send through your questions, and you can do that using the hashtag #SafariLive on Twitter. Now, as most of you will by now know, we have two cameramen doing their interviews for a position at Wild Earth. Senzo is one of them, and Martin is out on his very first bushwalk. As you know, it's a completely different skill set. So we've spoken about this before. We will forgive them every tiny mistake. They're doing exceptionally well so far. And as I said, it's a very difficult thing. And I know just from my job interview, it's also a rather terrifying thing as well. They've both done exceptional jobs. So we arrived at the hyena den. Not my first time visiting it, but I had hoped my first time seeing those adorable hyena cubs coming out. But they aren't anywhere to be seen. Nobody's home, their mother ribbon isn't around, so we'll just have to try again later, and I'll just have to postpone seeing how big those hyena cubs have got while I've been away. Now, of course, we spoke about the fact that you never know what to expect on our sunset safari, and we had a very exciting end to yesterday's sunset safari. I'm not going to tell you too much more about it though, because the man who was there is James, and he would like to say good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Yes, hello. How are you? Hope you're having a lovely day. My name is James Henry. I was just allowing the strap to go in and out, and that's only because David is not here with us on camera because he shouts at me when I interact with the graphics. We've got Batman the Loud, as I said, on camera today, and over there is a Franklin giving an alarm call. Now, please do talk to us over the course of the next 3 hours. Jamie, you've met, of course. Leo Smith is heading his way down towards Twin Dam's inner vehicle. Soon he will be on his large feet, looking about the place. Hashtag Safari Live is the best way to talk to us. In that way, you can ask us questions. You can send us comments. Anything you like about what we're seeing out here, and certainly notwithstanding us finding something particularly interesting, you can create conversation by asking us various conservation-related topics, perhaps. Now, you can hear that, Franklin. I can't see it, and I don't know what it's shouting at. Now, those lions that we had yesterday, I'm afraid we were hoping to find again today. They have, in fact, gone into Buffelshoek, as I said during the pre-show. If you didn't happen to be watching the pre-show, which would definitely have been to your advantage not to have watched, the lions have disappeared into Buffelshoek. I can't see anything out here. I wonder if it isn't going to be worth a brief foray off the road, just to have a quick look. And I've just heard that the entire Nkahuma Pride has been found with all 5 lionesses and the cubs. We unfortunately will not be going to see them. On that rather sad note, let us head across to the very cheerful Brent Leo Smith.
Welcome to a very cloudy morning. My name is Brent Smith. I have Martin on camera and we are on bush walk. Now, of course, one of the biggest discussion points since I've been back from leave is the fact that Karula has not been seen in a long time. So what we've decided to do is start on Chelepan Road or Pangolin Track, which is one of Karula's favorite areas, and we're going to move between the Mawati River and Shabam Road, zigzagging, seeing if we can see any sign. Herbie's back from leave. He told me that the last track he saw for Karula was on Shabam 3 weeks ago. Now, we're just going to check through the bush, check for any sign of her. Of course, hopefully we might even find tracks of little Shongile or little Hosanna. They might have come back across. Remember, if you want to ask us any questions about the African wilderness that's all around us, you can do that by using the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you. Also, remember to let us know where in this wonderful world of ours you are watching from. Now, lions have gone north, but there is always a possibility that one of the Birmingham boys that's been with the Styx Pride could come in from the south, and this is one of their favourite routes through this area. Now, we've got to be quite careful in this area. There's a lot of little mud wallows, and those are, of course, big favourites of buffalo. So, ears open, and normally at this time in the morning, they're probably still having a snooze. Grumpy old Duggar boys tend to take a little bit of time to wake up in the morning, so as it heats up, they're probably going to move into these mud wallows. We're probably going to check them again once we've done our big loop, checking through Karula's favourite haunts. Now, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to find some tracks. Of course, this is also another favourite area for Tingana to come into Djuma. Now, he was on an Impala kill on vessels and he was nearly finished it, so it's very probable that last night he was up and about and on the move again, and we all know how much distance he can cover, so lots of possibilities. That's one of the best things about the early morning. You literally get to start afresh every day, fresh tracks, new tracks overnight. You see what's being happening overnight, and hopefully we're going to find some kitty cats. Now, one of my other favourite creatures is, of course, butterflies, and it's a bit cool now. Hopefully if it warms up, we might get some late season butterflies on the different flowers around. And a very good morning to Kat, who's wondering about my stick. Why do I carry a big stick? Well, I find it quite useful to point at things, to draw circles in the sand if we find some tracks, and of course it can be very useful when encountering dangerous game. With elephants I can make myself much bigger, and if anything becomes really bad I can throw it. I have thrown this particular stick at some buffalo bulls before that were being a bit naughty and chasing me round and round a termite mound. So a stick's just a very useful thing to have in the bush, and well, as Herbie calls it, he calls it my rifle. But it is very useful to have, and it also helps when cam ops aren't listening. You just whack them on the head. Now, there we go. Let's just listen for a second. You can hear some go-away birds. They're not really alarm calling, and there's this constant sound at the moment, and I don't know if any of the other presenters have managed to get them on camera yet, but it has been one of my big missions. I've seen lots of them, I hear them all the time, but I haven't managed to get the Karachani button quail on camera yet. So they're just all, literally I can hear them for a full 360 degrees. And it's so funny, once we eventually get one on camera, apparently Byron got one on camera, well done Byron, is that this deep booming call comes from a tiny little bird who doesn't look like the voice suits the way he looks. So far lots of hyena tracks up and down, but no sign of cats just yet. So we're going to keep walking and let's go see what Commander Bond is up to.
I'm not James, I'm Jamie, but relatively easily confused. I mean, those two names only really have one letter difference between them. I see lots of hyena tracks too. So it's not just Brent, there are hyena tracks absolutely everywhere, although, as he said, no sign of any of the big cats, except apparently for a report of the lions that have crossed into Buffelshoek. So all the Nkuhumas are back on Buffelshoek once again. So my plan for the morning, since our hyenas don't want to be home, and they are home, by the way, the two cubs will be in the den, but without their mum, there's not much we can do. And my plan for the morning is to check the southern boundary. I know that's where Brent is heading as well. Check the southern boundary, see if there's any sign of Karula or either of her cubs wandering about. Sorry, there's a very confusing mishmash of tracks off to my right. And I would love to show you, but in this light and on this soil, you won't be able to see exactly what I see. But it's a combination of baboons and hyenas. Our Shamsun, very good question, because of course we're all wondering where Queen Karula has gone. Not that it's that unusual for a leopard to disappear for a while. And you want to know if it's possible that she's denning or could be looking for a den site. So that's absolutely possible. I would say we've seen her mating. We know that she's been mating with Tingana. I would say it's a little bit early, but estrus cycles will do what they will. We've seen shadow mating when her cubs are 6 months old, so it's possible. It is possible. In which case, unfortunately, Hosana and Shungile will just have to get used to the idea of pretty much being on their own. Their mother might still let them share kills, possibly, with her if she's feeling tolerant, but she won't be devoted to looking after them if she's got new cubs. So it's a possibility. I'm not sure whether or not that's the case or if they've just got separated. It's impossible to really know exactly what's going on. My suspicion is, and I could be proved completely incorrect, as we often are when we guess at what's going to happen, my suspicion is that in the next week or so, we'll see all three of them back together. We've even had a thought that perhaps Karula found her son and they're busy sharing a kill somewhere and she just hasn't been able to find Shungile yet. There is a great meeting of vehicles over there. Why is there a great meeting of vehicles over there? What is going on over there? They're all stationary as well. I'm just going to switch radio channels. You can just have a look, Senzo, while I do this. You don't have to zoom right into the people, because generally speaking, people prefer not to be on candid camera. But there we go. A great gathering. Our morning stations in the east. Are there any updates from around Gari Main? Okay, copy that. Thanks very much. What are the standbys like for that? Yes, no, maybe. Huh. Alright, there are 2 male lions over there. As to whether or not we can get into the sighting, it seems as though there are lots and lots of people that would like to make their way there. It's probably 2 Birmingham boys, would be a relatively safe assumption. But unfortunately, we can't actually go any closer. So let me explain this for new viewers while we're sitting here. Okay, let me hold off on that explanation because it sounds as though James has got some very playful wildebeest on quarantine. So let's go and have a look.
This is quite fun. We're rolling along the road and across it is going a very great bull wildebeest on the run. He looks like a dressage horse. Now he's just doing a couple of flying changes from left to right, and that's because of course he's keeping his eye on us. Not sure where he's migrating to. Now, on that very easy way he lopes. You see that now? Normally an animal would trot at that speed, but because of his design, he's able to canter along at that very gentle pace, which is very energy efficient. I'm quite keen to follow him. Where are you going? He's come all the way from Buffelshoek, down the Buffelshoek cut line, and now he's moving back towards, well, he's going down a road called Mvubu Road, which is down towards the south, and back towards the Galago Pan, or the Djuma Pan, both are in that direction. I think that's quite fun, don't you? I wonder, should we... No, let's not follow him. He's unlikely to be following lions, I suppose. Goodbye and thank you. We're on the northern boundary, the Buffelshoek cut line, and so what we'll do is continue off towards Buffelshoek Dam and see if I can maintain my record of the last 4 months or so by not finding a single mammal there except a hippopotamus. Crystal, what was that about the earthquake? Yes, I know about the earthquake. Oh, is it quiet because of the earthquake? No, I don't think it's quiet because of the earthquake. I don't think the animals are sort of standing, staring at the sky, waiting for fissures to open underneath their feet. No, I don't think so. I think it's just quiet because the grass is long, the lions happen to be north of us, and because we're not on an enormous piece of ground, it means that the animals are just sometimes here and sometimes they're not. That earthquake, I didn't realize you'd felt it all the way here as well. We felt it in Johannesburg, and its epicenter was somewhere near the capital of Botswana, which I'm sure many of you knew. I'm sure you discussed this at length yesterday. But it was a fairly big one for this part of the world, 6.5 on the Richter scale, which is unusual because, of course, we don't have a huge amount of tectonic activity in this area. It's a very settled part of the world tectonically. It's one of the reasons there's so much gold, so little in the way of volcanic activity, or has been so little in the way of volcanic activity for so very long. But no, I don't think that's why it's quiet. Now, if we have 2 male lions down all the way to the south, 3 or 5 females of the Nkuhuma pride up north with the 6 cubs, well, what are we missing from our characters? We're missing 2 male lions, don't know where they could be. They could be anywhere. And obviously we're missing the royal family. And the great discussion has been, where is Karula? Now, there are obviously a number of possibilities, some of them ranging from the terrifyingly horrible all the way to the, I would say, fantastically optimistic. We won't delve into the former. We might delve into the latter slightly. I just think that she's in amongst this very long grass, very easy to miss the tracks, because she's not moving with the cubs a great deal anymore. It's quite possible that she's mating somewhere. It's quite possible she's got a kill somewhere on her own. It's quite possible that she's passed all the way from the south through Djuma without us even noticing it. Because, you know, a little leopardess walking across a road like this, well, it's not that hard to miss. So I think she's just managed to escape our notice for quite some time, and we'll see how long that situation continues. But I hope it's not for very long. It really would be rather nice to see her again. Hello, Alyssa. You're wondering why no other female leopards have moved into Karula's territory. Well, I suspect it's because it's too soon after, you know, her absence from this particular area of her territory. Remember, Djuma doesn't cover her whole territory. Her presence in terms of her smell and possibly her calls even at night are not absent from here yet. So it doesn't feel to most of the other leopards of the area, of course, like it is vacant. Now, what would happen, I suspect, if, so let's pretend that Karula had shaken off this mortal coil, perish the thought, then what would happen, or what happens wherever a leopard dies, the territory is not then filled by another leopardess. What happens is that the territories around it will sort of expand, and so in this case Shadow would probably come slightly further east. You'd probably find that Shongile would find herself a little spot in the middle somewhere. Maybe a female from the north would come further down. I do think that there's a largely vacant area up here in the north. It's entirely possible that the area that Shiluva used to occupy, which is to the north of us here, maybe Karula's gone in there and she's investigating around there and thinking that's quite a good spot for her to be in. So it would just be a kind of shifting of the territories, and yes, space would be opened up for another one, but it's not like another leopardess would come straight into the area that had been vacated by Karula. And we're not saying that she has vacated the area. I just think she's being a bit invisible at the moment. I mean, we haven't seen her for 2 weeks or so, but you know, Shadow goes 3 weeks sometimes without being seen. That's by us and by Arathusa, so I mean it's not unusual. I cannot see one track going either hither or yon across this, and so I'm going to increase my speed slightly. While I do that, let's find out how Brent Leo Smith's tracking is going.
Well, we've come now to the eastern edge of the Mawati River, and we're moving through these beautiful Tumbuti thickets, and there's been so much elephant activity over the last few days here. I'm really hoping that they've cleared up the grass and we're going to be able to see tracks. But of course, when we're moving through these type of areas, one always has to be careful, especially when I have a look right here. Not too fresh at least, but you can see something has removed the bark from this section of the tree, and it's not an elephant. It's way too low. This is also a Tumbuti tree, so it's highly noxious. So what's happened here is a buffalo with those massive horns, a nice big buffalo bull, has just rubbed his horns up and down along here. And the reason they do that is they get the little bits of Tumbuti bark stuck in those little notches and little nooks and crannies on their boss. And being highly noxious, it's sort of it's an insect and tick repellent. So it's one of the ways the buffalo try to control ticks, especially around their ears. You'll even see them sometimes getting small Tumbuti branches behind their ears and rubbing to try keep some of those ticks away. Now, if you look carefully sometimes in these type of things, and you break open little bits of mud that have obviously come off the buffalo, you can sometimes find ticks that are completely encased in the mud, but not at the moment. So we're just going to keep moving very slowly through here for a couple of reasons. Obviously the buffalo, we also don't want to miss any tracks, and it is quite thick here, so all our senses are being used. We're using our sense of smell, we're using our hearing, and of course our eyesight. This is always one of my most favorite places to walk. It doesn't matter where we are, is around a riverbed or a river. And you've got the most spectacular trees, these little Tumbuti thickets, and you've got nice big jackalberries and scotias. And of course, one of the more important things is just off the Tumbuti thicket is an alluvial floodplain. So what that means is, at some point when this river was a lot shallower and hasn't cut away as much, good quality soil was dumped here, and you might see Herbie disappearing, keeping us safe, and therefore you get really nice grasses here. So where you've got good grass, you've got lots of grazing animals, and that attracts the predators. Now, I didn't quite hear that. I know Kat was asking about grass, but I'm not sure what changed. I'm sure Rebecca will let me know now. Hi, Cat. Cat's wondering, does the grass length change with the seasons? Indeed it does. So a lot of this grass, it doesn't die, it becomes dormant during the winter months. So the top part that we can see out here will all dry out, and will, in a lot of cases, even still be eaten. There is some good quality cellulose even in the dry grass, but it'll be trampled flat by buffalo, elephant, and the different animals. So it's much easier to see things during the dry season because the grass is almost non-existent. So the growing points of grass are actually under the ground. So the grass doesn't die, it just becomes dormant when during the winter months. Lots of fresh elephant dung, all from last night, all around here. So that's another reason why we must slowly through here. And as you can see, we're in the change of seasons. A couple of months ago, this would have already been filled with dung beetles, but now, not a dung beetle on it. We're going to keep moving quietly through these riverine thickets. Hopefully our luck's about to change while we do that. Let's go back to James, who's got a beast I don't want to meet on foot in a thicket.
Yes, we definitely don't want Brent to be meeting one of these fellows. Two fellows here, the hippopotami of Biffleshoek Dam, and with any luck they will show us something interesting fairly soon. I don't think they're going to. This is all I've managed to find in this place for some time now, and that of course fills me with a great deal of sadness. Anyway, we'll see. Maybe over the course of the next 2 minutes or so, a great bevy of lions will come down towards the water. Perhaps the Torchwood Pride, who I've never met before. It would be lovely to meet them, wouldn't it, Craig? Delightful, yes. That's a good word there, well done. It would be delightful indeed. Anyway, we'll find out soon enough, I guess. Very quiet out here in terms of the dawn chorus. The dawn chorus is extremely quiet. Not an enormous amount going on there. Just a few hornbills going. One or two rattling sticulars. But otherwise all is at peace. Alrighty. Let's just move slowly forward and we'll see if we can't find what Michelle is talking about. Michelle, you say, do hornbills migrate for the winter time? No, they don't. All of the hornbill species that we have here stay. So the grey hornbill, the yellow-billed, the red-billed, sometimes the trumpeter, and sometimes, I think once or twice, the crowned. They all stay here, as of course does the distantly related ground hornbill. They all stay here. None of them migrate. Now, this is quite interesting. Look at all those Egyptian geese. Now, for a long time, we only had 2 Egyptian geese here. They were comfortably the worst parents in the Sabi sand. They'd produce clutch after clutch, and those clutches would die or be taken by various predatory birds. Suddenly, there's a whole family here, but I don't think they're from here. I think they might be intruders, or refugees, if you like. You can see them eating grass there, and I'll tell you why I think that, because we haven't watched any goslings being raised here, and I think I can see our normal 2 off to the far end of the dam there, Craig. They're just on the shoreline. You see them there? That's it, they're in there. So, a band of refugees has joined us here at Biffleshoek Dam, and perhaps they will be more successful. I'm pretty sure this is that is a family with some youngsters that are probably about to go independent. Still the monotonous larks continue. But otherwise all is quiet here on the eastern front. Good. On we go. There we have a hornbill. Seem to be looking for termites, I think. Always that beak sharpening and cleaning. It's hugely important, of course. If that is your only tool, then you must look after it. It's so important. Obviously, if you were to lop off a hornbill's beak, it would have a very difficult time surviving. And so it's got to be maintained clean, it's got to be sharpened, and as do the feathers, of course, because if the feathers aren't looked after, well, it's not maintaining an aeroplane, really. Eventually you're going to plummet from the sky, which, no matter what kind of organism you are, encountering the ground at terminal velocity is almost certainly going to result in death. Good. On we go. Alright, let's go across down to Jamie. She's over there in the south, and I'm sure she'd like to tell you what's happening with access to that lion sighting.
I'm in the west now, actually, which tells us a fair amount about the access to the sighting of those lions. Something that I was going to explain to you earlier, but I didn't want you to miss a moment with the Wildebeest and James, was the fact that out here we try not to overpressurize the animal, which means that there's a maximum of 3 vehicles for every sighting of every animal, and then everybody has to rotate through them. On a main road, that means absolutely everybody in the northern Sabi Sand can go there. And if they haven't seen lions for a while, which seems to be the case, then everybody wants to go and take their guests there, which is absolutely fair enough. And we have far more time and far less pressure because all of you are much more understanding than, not all guests, but certain guests. So we're going to just leave them for now. There's lots and lots of people who want to come and have a look. We're going to potter around Arathusa, Red Dam, take a chance on Shadow, and then later this morning, once everybody's had their moments to sit with the lions, then we'll go back there and spend as much time as we want with them. And that's the idea in my head anyway. So I've left those guys, the lions for now, and we'll just return a bit later. So don't go anywhere, because you will, unless they go south, which is my one concern, but you should be seeing lions by the end of the sunrise safari. So the search, it's quite difficult to say, search for Shadow continues. Back to Red Dam with us to go and see what we can see. Perhaps we'll get lucky and she's just there. Brent tried yesterday afternoon, I tried yesterday morning. We know she was in that area. Brent said he had very fresh tracks of her drinking at one of the mud wallows. I'm just hoping that we get lucky. That's all we can do, really. There's a chance that she's crossed over into Simbambili, but if you don't try, you'll never know. And I want to try again. I had a thought that perhaps with Karula absent and not calling as much in her usual territory, that Shadow might spend a bit more time on Djuma, but I think that's just put too human a logic on things, because it doesn't seem to be what she's doing. She's spending her normal amount of time on the edge of Djuma. So Shadow is a female leopard with a very, very young cub, and she's the daughter of Karula, and they share a territorial boundary, which is very common between mothers and daughters, and it's right along the western edge of Djuma. And it kind of, the boundary shifts a little depending upon whether or not either of them are present. Occasionally they encounter each other and there's a bit of growling. And I'm sorry, I'm not looking at you for now, I'm just concentrating. To see a leopard in the long grass is like a a needle in a haystack, and all I can hear is monotonous larks all around me. Where, oh where? And it's the stickler that's stickling at me. Those are two types of birds, by the way, for our new viewers. And I would show you them, but they're both slightly out of view. Alright, everybody cross fingers and hold thumbs. I have this image in my mind, which I suppose is going to actually stop it from happening, but I have this image in my mind of Shadow just sprawled on the red dam wall with her cub. Ha! Oh, but things were so easy. It seems as though Rebecca has very little faith in my expectation that there's going to be a leopard on the dam wall, so while I go around the corner and check and hide my disappointment, let's go and find out why Brent is climbing trees this morning.
Well, one of the really awesome things about bushwalk is you get to some spots that are near impossible to get to in a vehicle, and this happens to be my favorite Timbuti tree on the whole of our traverse. Now it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 massive stems, and I've actually seen leopards in this tree before, actually Shongila and Hosanna, but it is just such a beautiful big Timbuti tree, and we don't have too many really large ones here. And I think if I was going to go camping and I'd have to have a campsite, it would be underneath this magnificent tree. Now, it's a good tree to camp under because it's a tree the elephants don't eat too often, so you're unlikely to be harassed during the evening, and it's formed on a very old, probably a very ancient termite mound. Now, this termite mound is no longer active, and you can see how succession has taken place here. Now, succession is, of course, the growth of plants. Now, what happened, I mean, if I have to look, this termite mound is probably 15 meters in diameter. It is absolutely massive, and it's been dormant for quite a while. Now, what would have happened when it was a smaller, more active termite, or just after it became active, you will find a bird probably deposited a seed here, and then another bird deposited a seed, and normally you start with the smaller bushes like these spike thorns here, and then what happens is as they grow, more birds sit in them, and you get some grass or seed-eating birds that eat grass seeds. They sit on them, and then grass starts growing like this. We've got some sorghum and panicum growing here, whoopsie, and so on and so forth, till eventually we're going to get termite mounds that are completely covered in trees and grass, and in certain parts of Africa, like the Okavango Delta, this would be the start of a future island. And we are on that alluvial floodplain still. Unfortunately, we've had no luck. We've heard some elephants up ahead, so I'm hoping that they are not too far away and in not too thick a bush. Now, Marco is wondering about our friend the Timbuti tree and whether they produce a flower or a fruit. They produce both, Marco. They produce a very, very small flower, it's quite green and almost not noticeable. But the fruit is very interesting because of a species of moth, a tiny little grey, nondescript little moth lays its eggs inside the fruit. And in the North America, I think you have a certain, or same family of moth that you call a Mexican jumping bean. So the Timbuti seeds become like that. They actually leap and jump all over the ground because the little larval stage of the moth is inside. They actually eat the whole inside of the seeds, and then once they've done that, they flick themselves off the tree, land on the ground, then flick around a bit to try escape that. Then they'll dig into the ground, go into chrysalis, and then come out as moths the next season. This year, we didn't have the jumping beans, or sorry, last year. It's normally sort of end of the dry season, but with the lack of rain we had, the moths didn't actually come out of the ground. That always amazes me about insects. So they know that there's not enough water, there's not enough food, the Timbutis haven't fruited, we're going to stay in the ground. Now, David's wondering about edible fruit and berries. This certainly is not edible, but there are edible berries. The Timbwiti will make you highly, highly ill, but you can eat gori, you can eat jackalberry, you can eat whiteberry bush. So there are quite a few edible fruits and berries. Most of them are very small, and one of the biggest problems with trying to get to those edible fruits and berries is the baboons, monkeys and birds get there first. So it is possible, and also some of them you can make like the grivias, the raisin bushes, you can make alcohol out of, you can make jam out of, and of course the most common fruit and most widely used fruit that we get in this area is the marula fruit, and that of course makes a marula, which is a favorite drink of a lot of people, as well as marula jam, marula beer. There's a lot of uses for marula, or you can just eat them as they are. Very, very high in vitamin C, very, very good for you, but again, you've got to fight with the elephants and baboons. Now, we're going to continue on. This is possibly my favorite area to walk in the whole of Djuma. There's this little riverbed that comes off the Mawati, and it heads up towards the east, and this is an area where Karula has disappeared into many times. There's no roads in this area, and it is an area that's not checked too often, so we're going to keep checking here. While we do that, let's go see if Jamie's had some luck around Red Dam.
No luck, I'm afraid. It seemed as though my dream of a leopard stretched out on the Red Dam Mall was to be dashed, and sorry. I'm just listening to the game drive radio at the same time. So that's what happens when we stop in mid-sentence with a sort of a gormless expression on our faces. It's because we're listening to what's happening in our ear, and we've got two different feeds. One is Rebecca asking your questions and passing through any comments that you make, and the other is the game drive radio. So I'm just half listening. Okay, can turn that down. And there's no sign of Shadow coming out either. She has not popped out here. I don't see a single track. Though it seems as though Shadow, who got her name because of her mysterious nature, it seems as though she's living up to her name. I don't know where she's gone. We've tried every drive in the last 3 drives. We've just had no luck. Lots and lots of hyenas around though. I think I'm probably going to finish the loop and then start heading back onto Djuma. Oh well, we'll just have to keep trying. The one place she might have gone is a place that we can't go, unfortunately. There's 2 actually. There's Simbambili, which is to the north of us, very close to where her last tracks were seen. And the other is a river system that runs out of Red Dam and essentially is a no-go area for us. We don't have any signal there, we can't speak to the directors, we can't hear the directors. So it's a place that we unfortunately cannot go. And you can imagine bringing you a live safari, some of the deepest troughs out here are places where it's impossible to get a signal. No, we won't be trundling along that way. This is a seriously deep mud wallow. Let's just have a look down into it. That could hide an entire buffalo. Look at that. An entire buffalo could fit in there, which is one of the reasons why summertime you need to be exceptionally aware of pans like this, because sometimes you come around the corner and you can't even see the buffalo that's inside it because they're lying down in the water. And just to give you a sense of perspective, because that actually, I realize, doesn't help you at all. It really is very deep. Oh, and the Ellies have been here. Wouldn't it be very funny if this mud was still wet and I just sank and disappeared? Bloop. Like quicksand or something. It'd be hilarious. But you can imagine how an entire buffalo could hide away in here and watch us walking down the road or something like that. So it's one of the reasons why, as Brent was saying, I'm going to be extra specially careful where buffalo are concerned. Some nice elephant tracks in there as well. Okay, let's go see what else we can find. Seems as though my plans this morning are not to be fulfilled. Oh, we still got those lions to look forward to. There we go, Geeky Beth. Lovely to have you on board once again. Geeky Beth, whose name I have messed up twice in the last week. Geeky Beth, yes, female leopards do kind of behave like tomcats in that they go off for long periods of time to mate. As for solitude, I guess it's a possibility that they might seek solitude as well. Usually not for such an extended period of time though, if they've got cubs. But when a female leopard mates with a male, she will be with him for about a week, maybe a bit less, but usually around a week, and she follows him wherever he goes. So he decides where he wants to go, and she just has to follow, and whether that means going into her territory, or whether it means going far outside of her normal path, and into the territory of another female. And that's what we've often seen when Tingana, who's the dominant male leopard of our area, our traverse area, when Tingana is mating with a female, he will take them wherever he wants. Like, for example, when we had Tundi mating with Tingana, or Shadow mating with Tingana, both of whom have ended up, and Kutile, in the middle of Karula's territory. And very often the dominant female in that area will come and watch and growl and just in general be thoroughly disgruntled by the presence of another female, but there's absolutely nothing she can do about it because the male will defend the female that he's mating with, and the female leopards know that, so they just have to lump it. But they will follow the male around, and if that's where Karula is, it would have explained a separation from her cubs, and then she might return to them. We don't know that's the case. It's just a conclusion that we all independently came to. And Karula's mysterious. She might have just decided to go for a walk. And welcome to Vicky and Lauren, who would like to know how long a leopard is pregnant for. Obviously it differs from leopard to leopard, but you're looking at an average of around about between 95 to 100 days. So it's roughly 3 months, just over 3 months, give or take. So the dates would be right from when Karula was last seen mating with Tingana. It could be possible that she's denning. I still don't think so, but it is possible. The dates work out quite well, because if I remember correctly, that was... When was that? Hold on. When did Brent have Karula mating with Tingana? Was it the December TV show that it was on? Must have been. So 1, 2, 3... Yeah, it's possible. And of course, that's one of the things that has been put forward as a suggestion for why Shadow doesn't successfully raise cubs. She seems to come into estrus very early, which means her cubs are left alone for a long time. Lanya, there's another good question, because of course not only do females mate with a male for an extended period of time, they'll mate with different males to trick them into thinking that the offspring is their own. And you want to know, well, how would a male leopard know if they've sired a certain leopard cub? There is a natural instinct that tells them that. I also think, in fact I know, individual leopards know each other, like you know your neighbors. So they know which females they've mated with. So if they encounter that female with cubs, even if it actually wasn't them that sired the cubs, they'll still think that they did. They know they mated with the female, and therefore they assume that the cubs are theirs. So it's an assumption. One of the very interesting things that will come out in the next few years will be the results of the DNA studies into the paternity of cubs, and whether or not it's possible for two cubs to be sired by different fathers. So what we're doing at the moment, and I thought for a second I was on Simbambili. Oops, I'm not. One of the things that we're doing at the moment is collecting leopard scat for analysis, DNA analysis, and comparison to the various males in the area. It'll take a while for that study to come out. There's lots and lots of research and analysis that has to happen, but once it does come out, it'll be very exciting to find out a bit more. I suspect that we'll find things that we already know. I would say that Hosana is Tingana's son through and through, but don't tell anyone I said that. You absolutely can't tell by looking at a leopard cub, but I think that he is. And it makes sense because the most mating Karula did was with Tingana. We'll see. We shall see. We've got Hosana, Shongile, and Tamba's DNA. Oh, it's all going well this morning. Go, 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 absolutely everywhere. The place is teeming with mammal life. Let's go and have a look at some bark with James.
Yes, I suppose it is teeming with life, and that is some bark. But if you listen very, very carefully, you will hopefully eventually be able to hear the sound of a baby hornbill. Now, we found that nest with an adult sort of hanging on the side of the branch, and it doesn't look like anything there. It doesn't look like there could possibly be hornbills in there. There are at least two youngsters in that slit in the middle of your screen, and you can just see where it gets really dark. And what I'm going to do is just play the call and see if I can't induce one of them to call for us again. Let's see. No, what is that? That's no good. Hang on. That's a bit odd. There we go. Here we go. There, look, look, look. There we go, and you can hear them. So Mum's just gone away to catch something for them, a caterpillar perhaps. Now this is quite late in the season, I would have thought, for them to be breeding. Let's just see if we can't see the little beak sticking out. They're supposed to lay, September to March, so we're into April already, but sometimes it says a second brood as late as May. So they've had a really good breeding season, and I would think that this breeding season probably has been very good on account of the good rains that we've had. You'll probably find that this is a second brood. And you can't believe how a hornbill could get into a hole that size. And as I was saying to Craig, of course, if you've ever seen a bird without its feathers, there's really not an enormous amount to them. Right, now just up ahead we've got a squirrel that is alarm calling. So let us leave this hornbill site and see if we can't find what the squirrel is shouting at. Can you see it there, Craig? There's that bush that's been pushed over. You're not going to get it here. You'll get it from there. You see it there? That's it. There you are. The tree squirrel. Shouting at something on the ground just below it. Now it might be shouting at Batman. Maybe it's just shouting. Maybe it's had a fight with its spouse. But it really isn't very happy at all, is it? Unfortunately, I do not see a leopard lying just underneath it. Well, that is the tree squirrel, our unfortunately only squirrel species that we get out here. Of course, the ground squirrel is the other indigenous squirrel species. but they only occur in the desert regions of South Africa. And the thing is really not happy. But like I say, that's Torchwood to our east, so we can't go in there. We are now on our Djuma eastern boundary, heading due south, and I think we'll head across to Chitwa Dam and see what we can find in there. Now, over a little while back, I couldn't find a plant. I couldn't identify a plant, and then my faithful plant teacher, Judy H., well, she took a little while, but today, there's a redback shrike. Let's have a look at him. She managed to send me a tweet, and she has identified the flower, and I'm now trying to find it again so that I can show you before it withers with the summer. Now, the redback shrike, of course, not going to be here for much longer. Let's find out when he goes north. No, stay on the bird. It's gone. Okay, let's try the other birds there, the doves. I just want to quickly find out when the shrike disappears. Can you see the doves, Craig? They are not one of the breeding residents, of course. They breed in Europe, and they are here until April, so they're going to depart this month. There, the shrike's just below again. There we are. The redback shrike will leave this month, so that's why it's looking so very fat. It's managed to gather up some resources for its long trip north. All right, Craig, we don't have to look at the shrike anymore. We can carry on towards Chitwa Dam. Now, Carl, I used to think that we had very good woodpecker species in Africa, and apparently we don't. So we get 4 species here. You wanted to know, do we see the large species of woodpecker? I mean, the biggest one we get is something called a bearded woodpecker. He's about that high, that big. So there are not many of them at all in this particular area. 4 species. In total, I think there are 9 in the area. But compared with other regions of the world, both in the New and the Old worlds, we have a fairly poor representation of the woodpeckers, and certainly nothing like the very big ones that I think you get in North America, some of which probably are about 1.5 feet long, maybe some of them. We're now crossing our southern boundary, and Brent is just over there, and he has found the tracks, thankfully, of something. What? Oh, no, apparently Brent doesn't want to show you his tracks. He said he's had enough of showing you tracks. I'm not sure what's going on there. Alright, let's go across to some impala we have over there. And I'm just going to get an update from Andrew while we do that as to anything going on Cheetah Plains. Oh, look, that's what they're looking at. There's a massive pig in front of us. Huge pig. That's so cool. Now he's a wizened old fellow. He's lost half his tail. So he's obviously been in the old battle, some of which he's won. I would imagine the one in which he lost his tail was one that he lost. Let's keep going a little bit. See if we can't get another view of him. Ill Words, is that your name? Ill Words? You want to know if every animal has a territory? No. Ill Words, not every animal has a territory. Many animals have what we call home ranges. Sometimes the term territory and home range those terms are used into... Sorry, this game drive radio is going to drive me mad. Sometimes they are used interchangeably, but strictly speaking, a territory is something that is actively defended. So a leopard, we know, has a territory that is actively defended. It will not allow any other leopards to go into it. Well, other than, conspecifics of the same sex, we say. And many of the herbivores are not territorial, and some are territorial some of the time. So Wildebeest, for example, is territorial when it's breeding season. Same with an Impala. Otherwise, they're completely unterritorial. And they will range widely within a sort of the area that they're born. Elephants, the best example of an animal that is completely aterritorial. They roam hugely depending on where the resources are, and probably dependent on where the other elephants are, but they don't mark or defend an area. And then some animals are semi-territorial, like wild dogs, for example. They do mark, but because their home ranges are so enormous, it's very difficult for them to defend against any other sort of intruders, and sometimes they make mistakes and you find three packs in the same area, on the same day, and then they get very upset with each other and they fight. But because they roam so widely, it's impossible for them to defend a home range of sort of 450 square kilometers or so. I'm really struggling to hear these names. Gwen's Day? Sprigged. Are you getting this? Spring Day. Spring Day. All right, there we go. Spring Day. Thank you. Spring Day, you want to know about change in animal distribution during the seasons. Yes, to a certain extent, animal distributions do change. Far more in other parts of Africa where artificial water hasn't been provided. There's a Waterbuck, Craig. You to stick the camera on it. So in this area, because there is artificial water or dammed water, such as the dam we're going to now at Chitwa, you'll find that seasonal movements of animals are reduced. But I guess the nicest example of seasonal movement of animals in this area would be the buffalo, which will come into this area as the winter progresses, the dry season progresses, and then when the summertime comes again, or the first rains come, you will find that they go off into the gabbros, which are different vegetation type, which produce different suite of grasses. They will head into those areas during the course of the sort of early rains. But in an area like this, it's actually, you've got to look quite hard to notice that sort of change in distribution. Andrew, did you copy? I'm just trying to get an update from Andrew as to anything on cheetah plains this morning. Oh, can't get a word in edgeways on the radio today. Anyway, wonderful Waterbuck bull. He's just doing a little bit of, cud chewing, basically. And I do wonder how this mowing affects them. I suppose it makes it easier for them to see. It might inspire a little bit of leaf growth just at the end of the growing season for the grasses. But it certainly makes our eyes feel more comfortable. And that's because, of course, this is parkland. Tall trees and the understory not thick at all, which plays to our psychology as human beings. We love this kind of environment because it talks back to our ancient roots, where it was great to have the trees to climb into for defense, but at the same time when we're walking on the ground, it gives us a great view of what's coming to get us. And I think that is the reason, they say, that we make parks the way we do. Mika, you say, has this grass been mowed or grazed? No, it's been mowed. I'm not sure why they're mowing it. I think it's probably to maintain the clearing. So this is an artificial clearing in front of the dam, and it opens up the area for grazers to come and use, but it will eventually fill up with bush, and so I think they graze it in order to at least mow it in order to maintain the clearing. I mean, there are pros and cons to it, and we could sit and have conservation debates about it forever and ever. But the simple fact of the matter is that the Sabi Sand area is a highly, highly managed piece of land. And so, you know, right to wrong.
Well, we are now on the southern boundary. We found one female leopard track, but I'm pretty sure that's Shongile's, and it's quite old, down around Twin Dams. So we're going to just keep moving, and we're checking the boundary. Herbie's found something. Oh, he says it's old. Yeah, so of course, desperation now. We're checking this area every single day, hoping for... Morning! Hoping for any tracks whatsoever of the royal family. Now, for those of you not sure who the royal family are, it's Karula is the female, and then her two cubs, Shongile and Hosanna, and she's normally our dominant leopard, and we normally see her 3-4 times a week, and she hasn't been seen for 3 weeks now. So it's a little bit of concern starting to come into it. She could just be mating. She could have moved into the sort of vacuum left by a female leopard who was killed not too long ago, and just scouting for new territory, because she will give a piece of her territory away to her youngest daughter, Shongile. And here we go. Traffic jam's over, so Herbie spotted another old track here. Oh yes, this is very old. So it's the second leopard track we've seen this morning, and it's another really old one. So looks, it is Shongile again. So I heard they had tracks of Hosanna, probably about 1.5 kilometers from where we're standing at the moment. So there's always a possibility he might come back. And there have been no alarm calls this morning. It's been incredibly quiet. But we shall continue on tracking, keeping on the road. So the reason, we don't normally walk on big main roads like this, but the reason we're doing it is because we are in desperate search of the royal family. But it sounds like Jamie's found something that's been walking all over everywhere recently. Let's go have a look.
Nope, not anymore, I'm afraid to say. Our big bull elephant has decided that he's actually quite shy this morning and has vanished off into some very dense vegetation. I'm not going to try and follow him because he's actually genuinely quite shy. I pulled up and he was busy having a casual munch on a Maruda tree, and that was that. He's gone. It's interesting that he's chosen this particular Maruda tree. Let's just have a look at this tree that he was eating. With all this fresh, soft grass around, it seems a peculiar decision to want to come and eat Maruda tree bark. And they do it regularly, particularly in wintertime when there's very little grass and the leaves of the trees aren't particularly appetizing. But he's completely... I wonder if he actually pulled this entire tree down. It doesn't look like it. It looks like this tree's fallen down of its own accord. Just looking at the fact that it has absolutely no leaves on it, I think this tree was already on its way to being deceased. But you can see he's had a really good munch on it. It's just fascinating that he chose to chew on something so hard and tough when there's so much soft grass around. Perhaps there's something in that bark that his body felt like it needed. Perhaps it was the sugar in the cambium layer. I'm not sure. It just seems like an interesting choice of diet. Wonder what's in Maruda trees that could make an elephant want to come and chew on it now, at this time of year. Maybe there's some sort of... I know there's antihistamine properties in the bark, but I doubt that would have been what he was after. Anyway, well, since our elephant's gone, that was about as fascinating as that bit got. Let's go and see what else we can find on Arathusa. Still absolutely no sign of shadow. And while I carry on, James is having a fantastic time visiting all the waterholes. Let's go and see what's happening at Chitwa.
All the waterholes, yes indeed, quite a lot of fun. This waterhole is Chitwa waterhole, and I'm sorry we lost signal there a little bit earlier. We're just on our way down here, and Wendy doesn't like the road on the way down here. There is the gorgeous picture of the sun, recently risen, and this algae-covered dam. And what's interesting here is that you can see, well, yes, there is a huge amount of this green algae on top of the dam, but I think, apart from the fact that it's obviously multiplying, you can see that the weather conditions have changed. The wind has stopped blowing. That sort of March wind that we had for quite extensive periods in March has gone away. And because of that, the algae has spread all over the dam as opposed to concentrating in the northwest corner. So I think that's quite interesting. Then we've got a few birds going on around here. We have the fish eagles off in one of the trees there. A pair of them. They seem to be very carefully watching to see if they can find any fish to eat. Now, of course, a fish eagle will struggle to see through this green mulch that is on top of the water, but a fish eagle will also, of course, scavenge. They're not beyond stealing food from others. What else have we got? And the red-billed buffalo weavers to the right of them in the tree have definitely got youngsters. There's a great flurry of activity, birds flying in and out of those nests, and a constant sort of screeching, begging call. And then, of course, if we follow the shoreline, eventually you're going to find some Jippo gooses, some blacksmith lapwings, and with any luck, when I pop onto the dam wall, we'll find the green-backed heron that we watched catching a fish yesterday. I thought it was a baby catfish to start with. Somebody else thought it was a tilapia and sent me a picture of a tilapia. Yeah, it could have been either. And I can hear some hippos way in the distance. And James, you're wondering about the crocodile sightings and how our winter months will affect them. Well, I think they'll probably be quite good for crocodile sightings, provided the crocodiles stay in this area. Now, the two crocodiles that have been spending extended periods here, I think will probably remain. There's no reason for them to go. And as the winter comes, so the algae will remove itself from the top of this water, and I guess they'll become more obvious to see. And of course the water will contract, which in turn will give them less space to hide from us. Some of them might try and head down towards the river, where the vast majority of the crocodile population of this area lives, and in so doing, well, with any luck for them, they may find mates, because of course those two crocodiles that are around here will definitely be looking eventually to establish themselves a nice territory. Let's try and sneak up onto the top of the dam wall. I think we might lose signal. Right, Rebecca says she's going to stay with us. She has faith it's going to work. Winter Prism, you're wondering about water snakes. I'm going to stop right here. Can you get onto that bird on the top of the thorn bush there? See it there? It's a little bee eater. Back again, same place. Isn't that lovely? Just gorgeous. That's the little bee eater. Winter Prism, water snakes, no, not in this area. Sea snakes off our coast. Yes, sometimes some sea snakes. Craig's a bit of a reptile expert. Have you ever seen a sea snake, Craig? No. But as far as I'm aware, none of our snakes will spend extended periods in the water. There are, however, many snakes that can swim. And I've seen puff adders swimming, I've seen pythons swimming. I'm assuming the cobras and the mambas are also quite good at swimming. Right, let's go up onto the top here. You don't really want to find yourself doing the backstroke next to a cobra, I feel. That would be unpleasant. Then we have the massing swallows. The swallows, of course, are now about to head towards the north, and there are a whole lot of them flying over the top of the dam here. Why are they doing that? Well, they're doing that, of course, because they want desperately to fill up with enough food so that during the course of their travels, they will have sufficient fat reserves. Because no one, of course, wants to go to Europe without food, do they? It would be like doing a flight all the way to Europe without the delicious nature of aeroplane food. Wouldn't that be sad, Craig? Aeroplane food is delicious, isn't it?
The best.
The best ever. And now I have had a question from Rebecca in the final control, which goes like this. It's very modern, you see. She said, did I see any rad birds in India? And which one was my favourite one? Well, yes, Rebecca, we saw a number of rad birds in India. I'm not sure that I had a favourite one necessarily, but I'll tell you, those of you who are interested in the birds that we see here, which is most of you, there is something called an Indian roller, which looks like a lilac-breasted roller that has got sort of very muddy. That was one of my favourites because it reminded me of home, of course. Lots of egrets and pelicans and that sort of thing. And then an interesting bird called a tree pie, which is a sort of long-tailed shrike. And I'm just trying to think, what was the best one I saw? I've actually got a list of them here. Let me have a look-see. My List, it's called. I think, you know what my favourite bird was? My favourite bird was something called an Indian jungle fowl. Now, I don't know, or a red jungle fowl. I don't know if you've ever seen a jungle fowl, but you have. You probably think that you haven't, but you have. The jungle fowl is the precursor to the chicken. This is the bird that was domesticated to make the chicken. Now you see that thing knocking about in the bush. It crows like a chicken, but it is the most incongruous thing to see that thing wandering through the bush, because you immediately think, well, there's been an invasion of domestic stock here, and there hasn't. The red jungle fowl was so interesting to me because, of course, it is now the most numerous bird in the world in its domesticated form, and that's where it comes from. Isn't that quite cool? So I think it was probably the most interesting one from that point of view. And I'm trying to think, there was another one. And Jennifer, you're wondering about parrots. Did we see any parrots? I didn't see any parrots except the parakeet, which of course I showed you yesterday, which is that's the rose-ringed parakeet, and I'll show you that one. But we get them in Johannesburg. They do get parrots, but we didn't manage to see any parrots there. Where is this parakeet? There, the rose-ringed parakeet, which I think we've shown you a few times. Not here, but obviously in the books. And there's a feral population of them that lives in Johannesburg and in Durban, I think. So that was quite a fun one. But there is a massive, massive diversity of birds in India. It really is. It's fantastic. Here are all the swallows, the barn swallows. They're all massing in front of us now. They come and they rest a little bit on the soil, and then they head off above the water where the insects are skimming. It really is amazing to watch them massing like this. Just trying to think of any other sort of astounding birds. Oh, interestingly, I'll tell you what it really is interesting quite there is that, you know, we often talk about the fact that our elephants don't tolerate oxpeckers. Well, they don't have oxpeckers there, but they've got plenty of egrets that sort of perform the same function, and minor birds, which are like starlings. And they spend quite a lot of time on the backs of all of the animals, including the elephants. And we got some quite interesting footage of two very large egrets, cattle egrets, standing on the back of elephants there. And I thought that was really fascinating, that the elephants are prepared to tolerate them there where they don't tolerate them here. Oh, and Bobby Peacock. Well, as your name suggests, you're obviously quite interested in peacocks, and we did see peacocks when we were there. And I thought the sounds of the jungle there are very primal. You hear the peacocks going, "Paka! Paka!" And in the background also the langur monkeys going, "Ooh, ooh, 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 ooh," and it echoes through the jungle, and one thinks, "Ooh, that is very mysterious indeed." Peacocks in the wild, also something fascinating to see. Or Indian peafowl. Now apparently Rebecca is being offended by the sound of my voice, and she said, could you shut up for a second, because it seems like it sounds quite nice here. So I'm going to shut up for a second. Tell me when I can speak again. There's a heron. There's a heron there. Well, there was a heron as it flown off. There's also, just below here, a squirrel. Can you see it, Craig? And it's coming up to say hello. It looks like a young squirrel. Isn't that cute? I shall try and take it. Oh no. Beastly squirrel, stay there. And then just above the squirrel, Craig, a weaver has landed. In fact, a number of weavers. And still building a nest. That's fascinating. Odd. Alright, Jamie has managed to find the first big game of the morning.
Actually, technically the second. This is the same elephant that I tried to show you earlier, except he's being slightly more obliging now. And I wanted to give you an idea. Oh, except he's going to turn in there. I was about to say, I wanted to give you an idea of how fast an elephant walks when it's just strolling. But of course, he wasn't on the same line of thinking. Hey boy, okay, let's see if we can catch up with him just around the corner. I said he's quite shy, and he's still a nice big older gentleman elephant, or he might be going for water. But what I wanted to show you was he was just strolling. Normal walking, actually not even properly walking, just meandering along. And I was idling along in first gear, quite happily keeping pace with him. And it just goes to show what we talk about when we track bull elephants. They move fast when they want to, and when they're focused on getting to one particular place or another. Let's catch up with him. He's just cutting the corner. I've just been chatting to Sean from Arathusa, discussing the missing Karula and the fact that none of us have seen any tracks or picked up on her anywhere around this area. So at least we know it's not just us. She's just decided to be invisible for now. Here we go. And of course I'm slowly but surely making my way back towards those lions. Hello, big boy. I'm going to give him a bit of space just because he is quite shy. Isn't he beautiful in this morning sunlight? Almost at that proper gentleman age. Elephants, bulls that sort of reach that 30-40 mark are always, almost invariably, so polite. They'll come up and loom over you, and just to sort of let you know that they're there, and they'll come and have a look at you, but they generally speaking, they don't have any kind of intended mischief when they come past you. dare I say, they almost have the best manners of any elephant, and I do want to call it manners. Hey, my boy. One thing elephants don't like, and this is for all of you that perhaps are planning a trip to Kruger where you can drive yourself around the reserve, one thing Ellies generally don't like, and you can see he gave me a little sideways glance out of the corner of his eye, they prefer it if you don't follow them while they're walking. So in other words, driving right up behind them. And I see so many people in Kruger do it that they think that because the elephant's got its back turned to you, it's okay to move into their personal space and follow up right behind them. And you've got to sort of remember that they generally don't appreciate the sound of the engine. And we don't turn off because it's better for the microphone or because it's better for the sound. We turn off because the sound of the engine will ultimately start to irritate the animal after a while. So by constantly idling up behind a big bull elephant, you find, unless he's particularly tolerant, they generally don't particularly like it. Where are you off to, boy? Let's just go a bit further forward. He's on a mission this morning. And welcome to Lighting Guy, who is a new viewer. And Lighting Guy, welcome. My name is Jamie, just in case you've missed the beginning of the show. And we'd like to extend a welcome to you to joining our Safari Live family, as it were. Don't forget, if you would like, and I'm going to answer your question in a second, Lighting Guy. If you would like your question answered, you can do that by sending it through on Twitter using the hashtag Safari Live. Right, so Lighting Guy would like to know about elephants running. Can they run, and if so, how far? I've seen elephants run easily 2 kilometers. Obviously, it's a big animal. There we go. Got a nice view of him while he feeds. It's a big animal, and it's an animal that running would require a huge amount of energy. But people think that because it's such a big animal, it's slow. That's absolutely not the case. An elephant at full tilt, running towards you at full tilt, charging you, can cover ground at a rate of around about between 13 to 15 meters per second. Just take a moment to let that sink in. 15 meters per second. And what that means is that no matter... There he goes. There he is. Okay, let me move around. I'll move forward a bit so you can see him. What that means is that no matter how fast you think you are not faster than an elephant when it wants to run. And that makes sense. They've got such long legs. When you're taking a stride of 2 meters at a time, it's quite easy to cover ground. But obviously they're not long distance runners. They are not endurance runners. They're not going to be running any marathons. Oh dear. That's going to be the best view I can offer you for now. Oh, every time I say that he moves. But we can look at his bottom for now. Or not. Or he could just move his bottom out of our view. What was that? Oh yes, I was talking about elephants running. But I have seen them run for up to 2 kilometers at a stretch. And they could probably run further if they need to. The times that you actually really see elephants running are if they're chasing predators, and even then, it's more of a, unless it's wild dogs upset them tremendously, but it's more of a sort of a cursory warning chase, something towards lions or leopards or anything like that, just to say, hey, leave me alone. And once the predator has run off, they stop their chase. They don't tend to pursue it in any way. The other time that you really see elephants running is when there's a big male following them. And if they're upsetting them. But elephants are, I almost want to say they're moody creatures. They do panic quite easily. We've seen that before. I don't know if you remember that sighting that we had where the elephant herd got scared by an impala and all started running in opposite directions. It was total panic, tails stiff, complete and utter panic. For no reason. It was an impala, it was an antelope. There we go. And Pug Fanatic, I assume that you really, really like pugs, if I've got that right. A pug fanatic, elephants do mock charge like other animals, but we're always very careful of calling something a mock charge, because a mock charge implies that the animal's playing. They're not playing. We sort of prefer to use the term warning charge, because that's what it is. It's a warning to you, and if an animal mock charges you, you've done something wrong. If an animal gives you that sort of warning, it's because you've overstepped the mark. Quite simply, there's no other way to think about it. And sometimes bull elephants like to give you a little bit of a rev, and that generally is more them just testing your boundaries than anything else. But a proper warning charge will happen, lots of noise, ears out, and often with the trunk up. Those are the signs, generally, you've got to be careful with this, generally speaking, that the animal's giving you a warning. If an elephant is serious about charging you, ears go back flat against its body and its trunk goes up. And you know, when an elephant comes running at you silently like that, you just know it's time for you to get out of there as quickly as possible. But it's also important to remember that a warning charge, remember those signs you're looking for, ears out, trunk up, lots of noise, that's when the elephant's warning you. A warning charge can turn into a real charge, and it very much depends upon what you do. And what you do will be circumstantial. He's beautifully illuminated by the morning sun. So it might be that you'll have to stand your ground, and that's almost invariably the best line of defense. But sometimes there's a reason that that elephant is warning charging you. Perhaps you haven't realized that you've come between it and a calf or something like that. And then it's better for you to move. So you have to sum up the situation and come to a decision from there. If you are on foot and an elephant gives you a warning charge, if you turn around and run away, there's a very good chance that that elephant is going to follow through. That's why we always talk about the fact that whatever you do, you don't run away from them. It's crucially, crucially important, because then you trigger them and they'll chase you.